Welcome to Roots and Roofs, where we explore the intersection of motherhood and entrepreneurship in the real estate world. I am your host, Mackenzie Shelton. Join us as we dive into the unique journey of balancing family life with owning a thriving real estate business. Each episode, we will uncover inspiring stories, practical tips, mindset conversations, and expert insights from others who are carving their paths in the real estate industry. Whether you are a seasoned realtor, a prospective buyer, or simply curious about the dynamics of managing both home and career, Roots and Roofs is your go-to podcast for heartfelt discussions and invaluable advice. Tune in and discover how these incredible women are building deep roots from the ground up while nurturing their families under the same roof. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Roots and Roofs. I have a super awesome guest with me today. Not only is she pretty famous in the real estate world, but she is also a really good friend of mine, and we work in the same office together. So I'm super excited to have Brittney McAllister as a guest on today. And we have guest of guest. This is her little one, Colin. So if you hear lots of baby noises in the background, that's what that is. We're keeping it real here. We're moms, we're entrepreneurs, we work hard, all of the things. So Brittney, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited, and Colin's excited. If you didn't have baby fever and you're watching this versus listening, or maybe after, well, if you're listening, you probably won't have any baby fever. If you're watching, you might, but
yeah,
sounds that come out of him. But yeah, well, hopefully he'll behave and we can chat about all the things.
Yes, awesome. Okay, so why don't you just kind of share with our listeners a little bit about your journey into real estate and how you became such an awesome high producing agent?
Well, thanks for all the nice things, by the way.
You're welcome.
I'm excited to talk with you. And I guess anyone that's like heard my story, I feel like they could like repeat it back at this point. But for those who haven't, I am like, I always say I'm the weird kid that got licensed. The weird kid who wanted to be a real estate agent as soon as my mom got licensed. So my mom is in the real estate business still, and she got licensed when I was 11. And so kind of from that point on, I saw what she was doing. I thought that was so cool. I loved, that she could still be at all my things and kind of build a business around her being a single mom, because she got licensed right after my parents got divorced. And so I thought that was so cool. I was like, that's what I'm going to be when I grow up. And so that was when I was 11. Fast forward 10 years later, and I got licensed when I was 21. So it's still in college. It was my senior year of college. And I was like telling my professors at the beginning of class, hey, if my phone rings, I have to go answer this because nobody can know that I'm still in college. Like they think I'm a full-time real estate agent. And so like there were times even in that first year where I remember telling my mom, like, okay, should I get like a fake wedding ring? Because people will respect me more if they think I'm married. Or like I just was always trying to skip ahead to the next, okay, people will definitely trust me if I, have this or do that or, what have you. But yeah, so it's been 9 years now. This is the end of my ninth year in real estate, and just crazy. I don't even know if that answered the question. That's how I got started. And then I guess over the last 9 years, really up until last year, I was just foot on the gas, 100% real estate all the time. And it wasn't until May of last year when my first one was born that I kind of had to take my foot off the gas. And that kind of leads into what we're talking about today, right? About like being a mom in this business or just in any business, any entrepreneurial, self-employed, anything. So yeah, I would say the first 8 years were all real estate all the time, nothing but real estate. And now this last year and a half, we've kind of switched gears and given a whole different perspective. And so I'm excited to talk about that today.
Yes, yay. Okay, so that was perfect. On average, over we'll say like the last probably 5 or 6 years, how many deals are you typically closing, just so our listeners can kind of understand, what you're working with here?
Yeah. So I've been on all sides of all the things, right? So when I first started, I was on my mom's team. She had a team. Then we ended up switching gears and I was a single agent. Then I started a team. And then we dialed it all back. So I've been kind of worn all the hats. And now where we found our sweet spot is really anywhere between 50 to 75 deals a year
Yeah.
is where I feel good. That I'm not really pushing super hard. Like this year, for example, from January to August, I did 75 transactions. So that was in preparation for this kid. And it was like, hey, how can we sell as many houses as quickly as we can and then take off the rest of the year? And craziness. So that's what we're doing. So
Yeah.
um,
And it's working for you, right?
yes, and that's working, and that's where we're at. So right now it's just myself and my director of operations, Liv, and the two of us kind of just have a good thing going. I did have a showing partner for the majority of the year, and that was really helpful. So for me, as a control freak, as a someone who likes to have my hand in everything, that worked really well for me, was having a director of operations full time and then a full-time showing partner to help with all the showings.
Sure. Okay, perfect. So let's kind of talk about mom stuff because you're like absolutely in the thick of it right now. So how has becoming a mom kind of changed your perspective on your career and kind of where you're wanting to what you're wanting to do moving forward?
I feel like becoming a mom has changed everything, like perspective wise. I kind of mentioned, so last May, my firstborn was born 3 months premature. So she was only a pound when she was born. They had told us it was honestly like 50-50, like chance that she would even survive. And that was May of last year. So like almost instantly when that happened, everything changes. Like
Yeah.
I was more so thrown into like a perspective change. I would say from May until, I mean, I'm still living it now, right? But like to see her fight every day and have to go through all of the things that she went through, and is she even going to live? And then there was a possible cancer diagnosis, and then it was not cancer. And then now she's 18 months living her best life. She has a trach. And when we first came home in January, she was vented 24/7. So to see her go from that, not moving, she was 9 months old, couldn't roll over, didn't do anything, was just laid there all day long. Now she's 18 months old and is running all over my house upstairs, like complete chaos. It's just chaos. So I would say perspective was, you just figure out like what's important very quickly. And I was thinking about this morning when I was thinking about talking to you, and I was like, God, I was so annoying. Like pre-kids, like so annoying. I feel like everything was real estate all the time, and which is fine, but I just have such a like deep respect now for anybody that has kids that's doing this at the same time. And it wasn't, obviously you don't know things until you know them, and then you act accordingly. And I feel like that was one of the biggest perspective changes for me, was just like
Sure.
understanding that other people have stuff going on that's not just real estate. And even our clients, like, I'm showing up to those conversations differently too, because they have stuff going on. And, you know, I can still reply to people whenever, they reach out, and there's a time and place for real estate, but just know
Yeah.
there's also life. And I think, yeah, like I said, I just have a huge respect now for, yeah, stay-at-home moms, working moms, any mom. Like you just don't know until you're in it. And this last 3 months, I really have left the house like minimal times, and I'm just like, this is wild. The amount of things I can get done in a day is way less. Um, like I'm sure, if we do this again in 3 months, I'll have a whole different perspective. Like I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
It's constantly changing, and especially with kids, and you just figure it out, I guess, day to day.
Yeah, you really do. It is dated. I would love to tell you that this changes as your kids get older. It really doesn't. You're just living your life day to day. So
Well, and it's funny too when you're, like talking about moms, because I'm like, who are these kids? Like, where's the mom around here? And I'm like, oh my God, it's me. Like that hat, I feel like I haven't totally like, like put on either. Obviously it's like, okay, I am their mom, and I love that. We're figuring it out. But I'm like, where's the adult? Like who is in charge? And then I'm like, oh crap, it's me.
oh, it's me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I am the chaos manager. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's talk a little bit maybe about some of the things that you've either implemented or kind of changed in your day-to-day life that have helped you in this, life transition, to still be able to service your clients and make sure that, everything is getting done day to day with real estate? How has that kind of changed for you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is leverage. Like we say that, and then, I have Liv, and when I hired even the first like admin, like assistant type role that I ever hired, I think I just did it because that's what I thought I was supposed to do. I didn't really like, I wasn't really giving them things that I, would make or break the business. I don't remember who I heard talk about this once, but they talked about business. We talked about this business decisions in relation to like a tree. And
Yeah.
so what kind of decisions are you handing off? Are they leaf decisions? Like, okay, you know, or tasks, if this leaf falls off the tree, is the tree going to die? No, the tree will be fine. In terms of just like control, I would say as well. So like, okay, if I give something off, then it's a branch and then the branch falls off the tree, is the tree still going to live? Like, yeah, it might be hurt a little bit, it might not look the same, but it's going to survive versus like, I'm still holding on to all the root decisions and like the trunk decisions, so
Right.
figuring out and making sure that you're hiring someone or have someone in your organization that you can trust to do those things. Like Liv's been with me for 3 years now. And I think like we're to the point where we are on the same page. We think the same thoughts. We say the same things. The other day we showed up, she came to my house. We were wearing the same thing. And like, sweatshirt. Like it was a totally like, so, and that's, I think, so leverage, like I've leaned into that so hard and I am a control freak. It's funny because my mom's been helping me a lot in my business now since I've been out, like just helping with buyers and things like that. And the other day, one of our clients, or a referral, I guess, that I gave to her, she needed to write up a contract. And I was like, I'll just write it. Like she was at my house. I'm like, I'll just write it up real quick. Like tell me what you guys talked about and I'll write it up. And she's like, well, I like to do it a certain way. And I'm like, God, you're annoying. And then I was like, oh my God, that's
Oh,
me. Like,
that's me.
I'm like, wait, that's me. I would never let somebody write my contract, even if I told them exactly what to do, like, because she's like, well, I need to review it when you're done. And I'm like, what? Like, I sell all the houses. What are you saying? And it was just funny because I'm like, well, that's where I get it from. Like, that's the control freak in me. And so I don't even know where this question was going, but leverage. I think that is like,
Yeah.
it's really leaning into that, leaning into asking for help, being willing to accept help. I would say that's a big one too. I think because I don't know. I'm one of those people, I've been there where I'm like, I'll just do it. I'll just do it. By the time I tell you what I wanted it to look like, or by the time I tell you what I wanted to do, I could have just already done it. And I don't necessarily think that's true. I think we think that. And then when we're doing it, either like resentment builds up or we're stressed and now we're like taking it out on people around us because, versus I can give it to Liv or give it to somebody, give it to somebody. And even if they're going to do it at a 80% of what I would do, it's still something I'm not doing.
Yes. And I've had to really embrace in my many years as being a mom that sometimes things are just better done than perfect. You and I are very similar in that, like, I am absolutely a control freak. I strive for perfectionism, even though that's like literally not possible, right?
Yep.
And I've had to really learn to like let a lot of that go. Because what inevitably happens in business and being a mom and all the things is you you end up just getting frustrated with all of the people around you, and you're, like you said, kind of taking it out on people when clearly like perfectionism doesn't exist, and we need to just make sure that we get it done well rather than perfect. So yeah, I've had to learn this even with having a farm too, right? Nothing is perfect on a farm, absolutely nothing. So God's just constantly giving me hard lessons that I have to learn. So yeah, I feel
Yeah,
that.
I believe that. And I admire you for all the things that you do. And I was thinking about that this morning too. I'm like, gosh, when I first met you, I think you were pregnant,
Yeah.
scout, and I was probably nowhere near, wasn't even married. Like I was nowhere near,
No, you weren't. I
like,
think you were engaged. Yeah.
and it's just so funny too, like the stages you go through, like I was like, I'm never having kids. And then I'm like, oh my God, I want all the kids. Like, I want my own. I want to like love on them. And now I'm like, well, now I'm kind of like, all right, we're good. I got two, God gave me two hands. I have two kids. Like, we're
Yes.
good here. But no, it's just cool how to see like everything that you've built that I know that you've
Oh,
so
thanks.
excited about. And then all the clients that like randomly I like that come to me that are like, how do I do farmstead or homestead farm things? And I'm like,
Yeah.
you're talking to the wrong person. I'm like, here, go ask Mackenzie. I don't know. But I feel like that's been fun too to watch like that come full circle for you too.
Yes, for sure. Well, ditto to you. Like it's so fun being friends with somebody who is not exactly living like the same life as you, but we've kind of paralleled in a lot of ways, and it's fun to watch. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so who or what do you think has been the most helpful in kind of supporting you in this new phase of life?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like three people. So obviously we talked about Liv. So on the business
Yeah.
side, Liv all day long. She like we went to I think in the last 3 months we've been at the office together one time. It was just last week. And other than that, it's been like at my house in our like in sweatshirts, legging, like we're just like doing the thing at my house.
Yeah.
Um, aside from business, well, I guess both, I would say home life is my husband. Like Cole is a freaking champ. Like I didn't have any postpartum type things with Morgan. I think that was more kind of fight or flight. Like we were just in the NICU and we were doing the things and making sure that she was alive. And that I didn't ever really think about myself, I would say, through all that. Like, and my business didn't stop. Like last year was so crazy. I was just selling houses, like sitting in the NICU, typing on the computer. Like it was a weird thing, but I never felt like postpartum me. Um,
Hmm.
this time around, it hit me really hard. Like it was a rough, probably that first like 2 months. Like, and I was trying to show up online so positive because that's who I am in general and just show up. Like, I was almost like trying to talk myself into being normal or feeling normal. Like, no, this
Yeah.
is fine. People do this all the time. I mean, I was like, there are people far less responsible that are like probably on drugs and they have kids and they like, why is this so hard? Like, so I struggled really hard. And there still are times like the hours from 7 to 10 p.m. No, can't. Like
Witching hour.
8 hour
All
bedtime, like he's asleep, she's awake, she's asleep, he's awake. I'm like, ah! I'm like, if one of them wakes up, like I'm done. I'm done. Like, oh no. Um,
that's
so
when you gotta tap him in and be like, I'm done.
you're in. So my husband, yeah, Cole's been seriously incredible. I feel like he is so calm. Um, when I'm not. Like he's just, yeah, he's been our rock, I would say, through all of this and even, with all the Morgan stuff and then now with Colin, like we just laugh. And I think that's been a huge game changer is just to be able to like breathe and just laugh. Cause that's
Yeah.
not natural. Like my natural is to like freak out and just like get angry and like I'm just like, but nothing's working the way I want it to work. And then he's just like laughing and I'm like, okay, well, whatever. Like we just,
Perspective. Yeah.
yes. That's been amazing. And then my mom, which my mom, obviously we've always had a good relationship, but I think it's also probably the same mother-daughter as a lot of people. Like we don't always get along. Like we do fight quite a bit. And I think having just leaning on her and needing her help, I feel like it's changed my perspective. I feel like she's far less annoying. If you listen to this, Mom, I love you. If she's like she's far less annoying now because I'm looking at her through the lens of like, oh my God, like how did she do this? How like I'm just so, I don't know, grateful and just in awe of like I tell her all the time because the Morgan's nurse, I have a nurse that helps with Morgan during the day because of her trach, and she leaves at 4, and my mom comes over every day at 4 because I'm like I can't have all these kids by myself. My mom's like, Brittney, you have 2 kids. I'm like, all these kids, there's just too many.
All
All of them. She's like, there's literally 2. She's like, I ran a daycare so that I could stay home with you girls, and I had 8 kids. And I'm like, well, that's crazy. I don't know how you did that. Like I couldn't do that. So yeah, that's been really fun too to, go through that with her and just have her here and like with the kids. And then obviously she's been helping with some of my business as well. So like the saying, it takes a village, like never really understood that until I'm like in it now. And I'm like, oh wow, like it does. And leaning on mom friends and just like talking through experiences, I think is what's helped me too the last few months, because every baby is so different. And what you see online is not real. Like
Not real life.
a
No.
highlight reel. And I did it too. Like there was one day I was in a total meltdown and my husband's like, okay, well, why are you posting pictures of everyone being so cute, having so much fun if you're not having a good time? And I was like, I don't know. Like, that's what the internet want. Like, that's what the people want to see. And he's like, well, the people want to see you and they want to see you being
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
And, like, there's probably a mom out there who's going through what you're going through and you're not posting it. And now she thinks that she's the weird one. When,
Yeah.
and that gave me another like perspective, like, aha, like, oh, okay. So
Yep.
those things, all those people couldn't be here without all of them.
No, you're absolutely right. And yeah, it absolutely does take a village. And so my mom doesn't live where she's never lived where I've lived when I've had babies. And I swear, whenever she would come and visit, I'd be like, basically like, holding her leg as she's leaving, like, please don't leave me. Don't leave me with these kids again. But,
Yeah.
but
Like cuddle
even,
my mom.
yeah, and even if you can just have people come and help you do your dishes and with your laundry, even if they're not necessarily helping with especially when your babies are little, it's hard to have
Yeah.
anybody help them but you. So yeah, for sure. Agreed. Okay, so just a couple more questions here because I don't want to take up your whole day, but uh, have you been able to kind of set some better boundaries with your clients and with kind of where you're at with like has that looked a little different now that you have two kids at home?
I think yes and no. Like, I still think real estate is one of those things that it's just so timely. And if things are going on, at least in my business, I do feel like I need to be very responsive. Of course, and I will say, like, I think one of the questions, that we had talked about or like looking ahead was, like, how are my clients responding to me having kids?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that has been one of the coolest changes for me is that a lot of my clients, when for the first, let's see, 15, 16, 17, first 6 years of my business, didn't have any kids. Um, and so they just knew Brittney as real estate Brittney. And now going, with having two in 2 years, we've like, it's almost like they've just embraced them just like they have me. And I feel like that's been so fun. Like we have them on our newsletter. We have like more, it was like Morgan's moment and we would like do updates about Morgan. Now we obviously have Colin in there too. So I think it's just been so cool for them or I think it's cool that they've like embraced me in this new like mom era. And I think with that comes like that respect of time. The crazy thing is I think people would have always respected that boundary. I just didn't have that boundary for myself.
Sure.
So
Yeah, because you
I
kind of
just
felt like maybe you didn't have a reason to, right?
I
Yeah.
just assumed that they needed me to respond immediately. And so then they would respond because I responded. And now if we're in the middle of the witching hour or,
Yeah.
anything that goes on, and I just feel like, I'll just say, hey, okay, last week, for example, I was setting a listing appointment. It was my first listing appointment that I went on in person in the last 3 months because we had systems set up that I didn't have to be there for the listing appointment. And
Yeah.
now, I was on the phone and I was like, well, I can come next week. Or it was like 2 days later. I can come in 2 days. I was like, but I just had a baby, which I'm going to keep using that phrase. I just had a baby until he's 18. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
I just had a baby and they were like, oh my God, bring the baby. And I'm like,
Mhm.
on the listing appointment. And they're like, yeah, you can walk around the house with the husband and we'll sit here and watch him. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. So I was like, these are the people I need. And I think I
Yeah.
always have said this. I think we attract the clients that are like us. I think we attract who we are like. The first 6 years, I was working so many first-time home buyers, so many, young adults, growing families. And now, and I still obviously love working with those people, but I also think now I'm attracting more families because I have a family and like people come into your path, you attract the people that are most like you. And that's why I do I always preach abundance. I think there's so many clients to go around because there's so many of us who are attracting people who are like us and we're all different. And so I feel like that's been really fun to watch my clientele expand as well.
Yeah, for sure. So going back to kind of the boundaries piece of that, right? So a couple of the things that I think you might want to do as your kids get older, because I don't think you need to do it quite yet, is like I always set up a couple hours in the evening that I'm not available to answer phone calls and stuff so that
Yeah.
I can actually spend time with my kids. Um, and then even I've gone even further than that. Like I don't really work on Fridays or Sundays. I did have to work yesterday. Yesterday was Sunday. I did have to work that particular day because I had a client coming in from out of town and sometimes you just can't avoid things like that. But overall, I try to set up my schedule. And that's kind of the beauty of real estate, right? Is like you ultimately get to set your schedule. But yeah, I totally agree with you. Like, it is super fun to watch your clientele kind of evolve as you evolve as a person.
Mhm.
Actually, when Tessa was brand new, I mean, I'm going to say she was like 3 or 4 weeks old. I
Mhm.
had some clients that wanted to meet about listing their house. And I was like, look, I'm breastfeeding. And if you want me to come over, like she's got to come with me. And they
Yep.
were like, oh yeah, no, that's fine. And they actually didn't even have kids yet, but they were kind of on that track. And so she was like, I'll just snuggle the baby and you can just walk around the house. So yeah, and I've always maintained because I started my career when I was already a mom. If somebody has a problem with me bringing my kids, now I'm not going to bring my kids to every single showing and all of these things, but like if somebody has a problem with me bringing my kids because that's just what works best, then I probably don't want to work with them anyway. Like, you know,
Yes.
and I'm sure you kind of have that perspective now too. It's like if you really have a problem with it, then we're maybe not the right people.
I think I think that's just it too. It's like, this is our life. This is my life now. So either we're a package deal. So yeah, take us or leave us. But no, I
Yeah.
think, I lost my train of thought, but I mean, I think that's exactly it that's what I was going to say with boundaries. I think what has been such a really hard transition for me is, and I worked through it. Like we talked up leading up to me having a baby number two, like, okay, this is going to be fine. I'm not going to work. It's going to be great. And then I've spent the last 3 months like, what is going on? Like, I'm not getting enough done. What am I doing? Nothing's happening. The days are going so fast. And so, um, that has been an odd thing, I think, for me too. I told my coach, I spent the first 9 years of my real estate career putting real estate first and fitting my personal life into real estate.
Yeah.
And that's not why we got into real estate. We got into real estate for the opposite. And so now I'm like, okay, I want to put my kids first. I want to put my life first, my family, and fit business into that. And I know that that's easier said than done because I'm still struggling, like we're figuring it out. But I love what you said because that even leans right into like mom guilt, right? Like
Yes.
there's time, like I swear, I'm like, I would do anything for these kids to be asleep. And then they're asleep, like, and I just stare at him and I'm like, oh, I miss him. I'm like, wake up. I want to play with you. Like,
Right.
it's I'm like, okay, now I guess we're all just, our brains are just not the same. Like, it's just so
No.
different. But I love that about setting your clock or setting your timer or just, yeah, like setting those boundaries, just telling, like, it's very sad, but my 18-month-old like is obsessed with my phone. She pretends to text. She holds it to her ear like she's on the phone. Like,
Yeah.
and that's a learned behavior because she sees me on my phone all day.
Yep.
Like, I used to judge back to like perspective. I used to judge people like, oh, your kid has an iPad. Like, parent your kid. Why do they have an iPad? And I'm like, probably could give her an iPad. She'd probably know what to do. Like, no,
Don't do it. Don't do it.
not
Don't
gonna
do
do
it.
that. No, I'm like, my husband said something about it, and I was like, no, give her a book. Like, we're gonna be fine.
Yes.
But it
Yes.
just, they're watching us all the time, and I think I didn't realize how much they pick up on until, granted, she doesn't talk yet, because like she doesn't really make a lot of noise because of her trach. I'm worried about she's gonna have a potty mouth. I'm like, everyone, like, we need to reel it in around.
For real, for real. Um, okay, so one last question for you. What is kind of next for you in real estate and motherhood? Kind of as I mean, we're almost into 2025 right now, right? What goals do you have? How has your, we've talked about perspective. How has that kind of shifted some of the things that you want to accomplish in the next few years?
Yeah. So like 3 years ago, I set like a 5-year plan of all these things I wanted to do. And then I had 2 kids in 2 years. And I'm like, oh, I don't actually care about any of that stuff anymore. Like that's not the plan. So I am like the opposite of a visionary. I have a very, very hard time thinking ahead and thinking about like, I would rather someone just give me a book and be like, hey, do this. Like, or give me a sheet, like, hey, just go do this. I'm like, done. I can go do it. I can check off boxes all day. Not right now, but I used to be able to. No. Um, I think I think it's like this is most important to me right now is just like not doing my very, very best to not look back in 5 years and have any regret around like, oh, wow, I built this cool business, but it was in spite of my family. Or like, wow, I have all this business, but I don't remember the important things. And I can
Mm-hmm.
honestly say I've spent a decent amount of time doing that already. And so I don't want to look back and be like, oh, I wish this or I wish that. Like I just want to do my and we'll always have that's just like how we live probably as humans. Like it's there, but I want
Yeah.
to do my best to not do that. So for me, 75, we set our goal for next year. Um 75 units, that's where I feel comfortable. It's not, if it's more sweet, if it's less sweet. Like I think that has come with motherhood too, is just being flexible, going with the flow. Um I was very a controller of the flow pre-kids. Now I'm like, oh, I have no control. There's
You have no flow.
there's no flow. It just happens. You just do what you do. So I think like looking ahead, I feel like it's the small but mighty. I think that worked really well for me. So we'll have Liv. I'll bring on a new showing partner. I think with leverage too, once you get something off your plate, it is fantastic. Once you totally let go, you don't want it back.
No, no.
So
I
I'm
know,
working on
and
that.
I'm having to kind of coach one of the agents on my team kind of about this because I mean, she is a self-proclaimed control freak. It's not like this is news to her, but just kind of wrapping her head around leaning more on our director of operations and our transaction coordinator for things that like, yes, technically right now, when you're not doing a massive amount of business, it is easier for you to do these things because you can just go and do them. But if you're trying to go from X number of transactions to X number of transactions, like all of a sudden that's not possible for you anymore. And you are going to feel overwhelmed and yeah, leverage now rather than when you're overwhelmed.
Right.
So yeah.
It's so funny because I think like I remember people telling me that, and it is just like sometimes, and maybe it's just like the entrepreneur in us, or just like maybe it's like stubbornness. I don't know. I never would describe myself as stubborn, and yet until I have those experiences, I'm like, it's easier said than done. And then I'm like drowning. And then I'm like, oh, this is what I needed all this time. Okay, great. So
Yeah.
like showing houses, I love showing houses. I used to think that my clients only loved me because we showed houses. And that was where I built rapport. And I could have talked myself out of a showing partner for years, and I did. And then once I had that person, it totally changed my perspective of like, really, I was at home ready, computer ready to go, that if they liked a property, I had it ready. I had comps pulled, I had this done. I could already have the contract drawn up so that they could review it when they got home. And like, so also shifting the value that I have is not that an open, I mean, it's important to open the door. Someone has to do it and someone needs to get inside. They need to look at the house, but the
Yeah.
value that I provide was far greater than just showing them the house. Like, yes, that made me feel warm and fuzzy because I got to do that and I like doing that. And yet I'm also very good at negotiating, and that's where they needed me to show up the best, was not necessarily to show up and do the best job showing the house, but to show up and do the best job negotiating for them, getting the deal put together, getting to closing. And so I've really had to lean into that. And so that's I think where, yeah, next year will be 75 units. Um, and then just kind of see what goes from there. I
Yeah.
think living getting rid of my ego a lot. Because that was a big thing for me, was like awards and recognition, and I want to be on a magazine, and I want to do this and do that. And that has just like totally fallen off, which is crazy. This is like a whole new version of me that I don't really know.
I was going to say, I've never heard you say this before. This is amazing.
I'm like learning that this version of me. And so I think that's all happening too, of like, and it's a daily struggle. Like I've had to mute people on social media. I've had to unfollow people that don't make me feel good. Like just things that just to help silence that a little bit more. But just knowing that like, it's okay. I don't have to sell, like, let's say that, who knows? Let's say I sold 20 houses. A little bit of me would be like, what the heck? And it's okay. Like,
You
well,
want to
I
know
mean,
what?
I'll sell more than 20 because we already have 17 pending, but like,
Well, yeah, you're like, unless I do nothing else the rest of the year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, just perspective maybe for our listeners, like the year that I had Tessa was 2021. I tried to crank out as many deals as I could, before I had her. I managed to do on my own, not including the team, 52 transactions that year, right? But then literally, like very intentionally, I took off in 2022 and only closed 18 deals, right? Now that was my choice. Like I chose to do that. I didn't have kind of some of the great systems and support that you have in place, at that time. But even then, like I mean, did I love only closing 18 houses that year? No, not really. But I mean,
Weird because we're competitive.
yes, that's more what it was. And I'm almost more competitive with myself than anything else. Yeah, but it was at the same time, like I got to spend the majority of that year with my daughter and, took her everywhere with me and was able to breastfeed her for a year, and some of those things wouldn't have been possible if I was just trying to crank out deals. So yeah.
I love that. Well, yeah, I think we'll just kind of see what happens. I'm like living day to day still. My mom's coming over to help me decorate for Christmas. So
Hey.
I like can't do anything by myself. That's actually Brittney and her mom era is I can't do anything by myself. I'm like, I don't know. I just need help. I don't know. So
We're really putting that ego aside.
like I don't know how to do anything anymore.
Well, Brittney, he is just out, isn't he?
We bored him with all of our real estate talk.
Yeah, no kidding. He's gonna be so tired of it by the time he's an adult.
Yep.
All right. Well, Brittney, thank you so much for coming on here and sharing a little bit of your experience being a mom and still doing real estate. And I hope this kind of inspired some of our listeners that are maybe new to motherhood or even just new to real estate and trying to figure out how to manage all of it as a mom too. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And yeah, if anyone pro tips, I'm always looking for pro tips. So if anyone is doing this and has a bunch of kids,
What's your Instagram handle so people can follow you if they want?
Yeah, the easiest one, it's at and then realtor Brittney. So Brittney.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Britt. Thank you so much for listening to Roots and Roofs podcast today. If you loved today's episode, please let me know. I love hearing from you on Instagram and Facebook, so feel free to send me a DM or tag me in your stories so I can share it too. If you're looking for more information about today's topic, please visit my website, mahoganyacres.com, and all of the information that is listed in the show notes below. Until next time.